After years of not posting videos, I finally came back to making YouTube videos in late November 2023. I was fully prepared for the work ahead, knowing that I'll have to dedicate hours to recording, editing, and writing the scripts. In order to prepare for all this, I put together a content idea spreadsheet listing off articles I've written off before, their titles, and added sections for the video title and what I'll be talking about. I won't bore you with the details, but the strategy is something that helps me to focus and was to be one of the cornerstones to helping me stay consistent as I attempt to make YouTube into a viable part of my creative business. At least, that's what I thought. All of that got thrown out the window by February as my life was starting to become harder than I was expecting. With no clients for my writing business after several attempts to find work, I had no reliable source of income. And between the usual monthly bills, I was quickly running out of money. It got to the point where I had to apply for social assistance, a program that I'm now on to help reach financial stability. It took some time though, and during that I felt a number of emotions: anxiety, frustration, some sadness. I was able to push through it with regards to my writing as I published dozens of articles since February. But I stopped making these videos entirely. Until now. The reason I'm telling you all of this, though, has more to do with the irony of where I stopped on my list. What exactly was the next video going to be about? Well, if you made it this far and checked the title, you know what this is all about. It's about willpower, a concept that we often associate to motivation and action. The irony isn't lost on me, and even during February, I was asking myself, will I face a brick wall in recording this video? I shouldn't have spoke too soon. But it's all kind of funny to me, not only about that ironic fact, but also given what I actually know about this concept and what I want to share with you all in this video. So let's get this started at long last. From sensible ideas like using the Pomodoro technique to some more dubious hustle bro culture nonsense, everyone has their own take on what it means to be productive. Underneath all of those methods, those strategies are designed to address one particular issue that so many people believe in: willpower. To them, willpower is an internal human source of motivation. If someone isn't feeling all that motivated to do any kind of work, one possible snag is that you're suffering from low willpower. And that is when the solutions pile on. On one end, the more sensible people offering reasonable productivity skills acknowledge that our willpower gets depleted and that you need to recharge it through various methods. For hustle bros, they want to motivate you so much that you never run out of motivational juice in the first place. Regardless of which creed you follow, all of them are about getting you motivated to doing whatever it is that you're trying to do, or that you're getting cold feet on. And in some cases, some may even bash or criticize the other methods. But what if both of those sides are wrong about willpower and motivation? What if we're misguided about how we should be using it? What if we're wrong about what willpower actually is? These are key questions to ask ourselves as they determine our very actions and decisions towards our goals, and the information presented should be put under scrutiny. After all, after doing some digging, I found something much darker and manipulative taking place under the guise of willpower. To best explain how we got our current definition of willpower, it's important to know how it was popularized. It all started several decades ago when researchers began to look into willpower and what makes people motivated or demotivated. There were a lot of ideas out there, but the most prevailing theory of them all was the idea of ego depletion. This idea was suggested by Roy Baumeister and his colleagues at Case Western Reserve University. Him and his team conducted an experiment that was so convincing that it's been cited over 3,000 times by other scholars in the field. It's a study revered in high regard about this idea that willpower has a limit, Once it's depleted through work, the idea is we're meant to refill our desire to work by giving ourselves a reward of some kind. Since then, the idea of willpower having a limit and that we must do something else to recharge ourselves has been the norm. Of course, hustle bros or more extreme productivity gurus have their own version, but it's generally the same. Treat yourself to more work that you love to do.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
The only problem with that study, though, is that it was conducted in the 1990s and used information available at the time. Since then, we've had a few decades of understanding the human mind, how our brains work, and human behavior, that this highly regarded study is no longer founded on sound science. There are three major issues with this old research. First is the whole idea of ego depletion in the first place. In the study, the researchers suggested that our brain is like a muscle, where working on something for too long leads to us feeling fatigued. In some sense, there is some truth to that, as there are more recent studies that show working 4-day weeks or under 50 hours results in you being more productive. Obviously, working beyond those hours leads to more exhaustion, and anyone working those long hours can be labeled either hustle bro, a workaholic, or Elon Musk. What these studies sort of imply is that we have some upper limit for how much work we can actually do. The only issue is that our brain isn't like a muscle that gets tired after a while. Research shows our brain is actually an organ that behaves drastically different from actual muscles. One of the big differences is the fact that our brain doesn't have fuel or requires it to be recharged. It just works all the time. The second issue is that Baumeister's method to test this ego depletion was dubious at best. In his first experiment, he had some of the participants eat freshly baked chocolate chip cookies and were asked to answer a questionnaire afterwards. The other participants had white and red radishes. Baumeister claimed that the participants who had the cookies suffered from ego depletion because they had more sugar in their system than those who had radishes. The only issue is that we know blood sugar has no effect on willpower. Not only that, but we don't suffer from low blood sugar if we have to do more mentally demanding tasks. In fact, whether we're working away on some project or watching YouTube, we are using up the same amount of energy and burning the exact same amount of calories in both cases. And the final issue is the fact that when researchers today tested Baumeister's theories, they did not get the exact same results as him, suggesting he skewed the numbers or that his theory is just nonsense.
You lie! You lie! You're lying!
These are just three glaring issues with the study. However, the damage is already done. As far as the public is concerned, willpower is real, and there's a limit to it. And anyone able to work past that is some kind of hustle god or something.
It's over 9,000! What?
This is one particular problem with science as well. Science demands constant testing and retesting and adjustments after a discovery has been found. And depending on the researcher, they may have already started to spread the word about it one way or another. It can get worse if the mainstream media picks it up, as studies are now nice fluff pieces to offer various bits of information, even if that information doesn't consider the full scope of the study. In this case with willpower, we're seeing a similar effect. Instead of news anchors offering little fluff pieces and little tidbits of information, it's the self-help industry itself. Key people have learned about this early on and have been perpetuating the same idea that Baumeister argues in his study time after time. And it's more influential if it comes from someone with a massive audience. There's more credibility to their words and less a reason to check to see if these individuals are wrong about something. Not only that, but if they're the only voice of reason in the industry, it's harder to find other articles that refute the idea that we're wrong about willpower in the first place. And circling back to the researchers themselves, Baumeister is keen as ever today in defending his research. To him, ego depletion is his magnum opus, his big contribution to science. To say he sits on a throne of lies only makes him more resistant to admitting he's wrong.
You sit on a throne of lies.
At the end of the day, both ego depletion and willpower aren't actually real, but we think that they are. We've believed in it because researchers decades ago made a discovery that was then popularized through repetition in thousands of studies and pushed by various gurus and other individuals who rose to massive popularity. And because of that, this is where things are starting to get a little bit darker with regards to what willpower actually is and what it means. Once we figure out that willpower is just a boogeyman that scares us to get motivated and isn't real, we can then ask some of the more important questions. Questions such as, is willpower actually motivational for us? To reiterate, I understand why people think willpower is real. We've had credible sources telling us exactly that for decades. Not only that, but on a personal level, we do get that. After working a long day at work, what do you do when you get back home? For a lot of people, it's having a meal, watching a movie, or your favorite TV series. You know, leisurely things that don't use our brain power for anything. These days, we follow that particular cycle naturally and have done so for decades. It makes sense why we wouldn't argue this, especially in cases when our work is particularly draining. For this reason that willpower is closely tied to motivation, and why when you look up how to boost or gain willpower, a lot of strategies coincide with motivation. Things like don't have too many tasks, take lots of breaks, reward yourself, work at particular times of the day, and eat properly are some of the most common strategies. Beyond that, there is the whole idea of burnout, which is real. Again, there are studies that show people can experience burnout and that they perform less when working after 50 hours. Not only that, but the general workaholic behavior leads to the decline of other areas of our lives, such as our relationships and our health. At the end of the day, they're not wrong in that we should be doing those things that they suggest, especially if you're going through burnout or are trying to stop your workaholic tendencies. But it's less about the whole regaining willpower or motivation to work thing. I say this because one particular study I stumbled upon blows the whole theory of ego depletion and that willpower is tied to motivation right out the door. The study in question is one done by Carol Dweck, a researcher of growth mindsets and the author of a very popular book called Mindset. In her book, she talks about a growth mindset in children that in order to obtain one has to alter the way that they think. Dweck categorizes mindsets into two distinctive parts, the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset believes in specific rules and structures. A fixed mindset will make a statement, believe it to be the truth, and refuse to change or expand one's mind to new possibilities. A growth mindset, on the other hand, is more free-flowing. If a mistake is made, it's not the end of it, and that there are infinite possibilities. They still hold on to the various rules, of course, but they understand that the world doesn't always work that way, and that there might be a counter-argument to refute the rules or bend them. The same sort of phenomenon occurred when she was researching willpower. She and her team found that ego depletion wasn't real when the subject believed that wasn't true at all. Meanwhile, those who did think of ego depletion as a real thing experienced that ego depletion that Baumeister vehemently defends.
I know it's real.
What this study proves to me is that willpower is a matter of belief, and that the reward that follows is nothing more than the placebo effect at work. We believe there is a supposed limit to our willpower rather than think the problem is something else. While I know we can't hustle forever, that statement doesn't mean that our willpower is fighting against us. We do expend energy throughout the day and get tired and need to sleep. Our lack of willing to work doesn't always mean there is a lack of willpower.
Because that's correlation, not causation.
It's for this reason that these strategies that are being suggested to bolster willpower don't actually boost willpower. They're just placebos that make us think they work when in reality, we don't want to work for a completely different reason. As a result, willpower content or strategies that help you regain willpower are not motivational at all. All of this culminates into what exactly is willpower, and the answer is pretty simple. It's simply a tool that hustle culture and the self-help industry has used at large to keep people in check. To have us convinced that our periods of recharge are somehow connected to the idea of willpower. That willpower is this force that encourages us to indulge in work, some habit that improves our lives, or some other thing that people deem as good, useful, or helpful. In other words, this is an elaborate scheme conducted by the big names in self-help to ensure that you buy whatever nonsense course or product that is meant to boost motivation or focus when you don't need it at all. It's another road bump on your path to achieving your goals that can easily be moved away by telling yourself it doesn't exist and it can't hurt you. The unfortunate thing is, of course, people are set in their ways about this concept. There are thousands of articles that suggest willpower is real, and frankly, refuting that is an uphill battle. The good thing, though, is again, there are studies emerging calling Baumeister's findings into question. So on a scientific front, we are correcting those wrongs. Beyond that, there are people who can still look into willpower like I have and realize that there is a lot more to it, and in a way we're not expecting it. But the biggest thing we can all do right now is redefine what willpower is for us. If it's not the definition that Baumeister argues, then it can mean something else for us. For me, I think willpower is more closely related to an emotion that we experience. An emotion that maybe we can't quite describe, but the most convenient option in our mind is to call it willpower. This, I think, makes the most sense since emotions have an ebb and flow to them. They don't run out, but they emerge during particular scenarios and situations. It revolves around the idea of doing a task that drains you, to the point you don't want to do it. On the surface, it seems like ego depletion, but the reality is more nuanced. Maybe it's not engaging enough, or the person who assigned you that task is annoying or something. Doing that task is utterly displeasing, and that emotion is what saps your willpower, when in reality, it's more the fact you're doing a task that puts you in a bad mood. Willpower is simply that. I know that it comes and goes, and that it's fueled mostly by whatever it is that I'm actually feeling at the time. My willingness to work on something hinges so much on my surrounding environment and my internal emotions. Knowing that, as long as I can put myself in a good mood, then I know I'm capable of doing whatever it is that I want to do. And that's all that really matters for both you and me. Put yourself in a good mood, however that may look, and you can work on anything. And if you don't want to work on something right now, then that is okay too. Thank you all so much for watching the entirety of this video. I know it's been a really long time since I've been making any kind of videos, but I would really appreciate your support if you go and subscribe to my channel, and also to leave a like on this video, as well as comment too. Yeah, that'll be very helpful. Anyway, thanks.